The voice of sharing. Durian ASEAN.
Hi, this is Arlene and welcome to Durian ASEAN. We have two of our guests here, Dr. Ngeow Weok Meng. She's a lecturer in a public university and she studied ethnic minority in Kelantan. And secondly, we have Hussain Assajjad. He's a founder and part of Assajjad movement, and he fights for the minority faiths within Islam. So welcome, you guys.
Thank you, Arlene.
Yeah.
Thank you. And nice meeting you.
Yeah. So first of all, just a general question. What is the current state of religious freedom in Malaysia? Maybe, start with our gentleman here.
Okay, well, freedom of religion, although stated in the Constitution of Malaysia under Article 11 and 3, is unfortunately not very much put into practice. The Shias and Ahmadiyas, for example, they have been subject to ongoing discrimination and demonization by the authorities. The Christians has long been made as scapegoats by the Islamic bodies and politicians. The Hindus also have often become victims when it comes to issues such as child custody, for example. And there have even been cases of destruction of Hindu temples. See, Article 11 provides that every person has the right to profess and to practice his or her religion and to propagate it. But apparently it is subject to applicable laws restricting the propagation of other religions to Muslims. Government in general supports Islamic religious establishment, and it is the official policy to, I would say, infuse Islamic values into the administration of the country.
I see.
So Malaysia, according to its very founding document, is supposed to be a secular state, but however, in practice it is not. So it's a very...
So we don't really follow exactly the constitution in that case, right? Do we?
We don't.
We don't.
It's a very confusing,
Especially when it comes to religious freedom.
Exactly,
What about your
right.
view, as a non-Muslim in Malaysia, if I would categorize that?
Well, it is our constitutional right to profess, to practice our religion. But what has been imposed on us sometimes can be so pressing on the non-Muslims, as I view it. So I think Hussain has taken a very critical stance on a religious, the treatment to religious minority, the minority groups in Malaysia. And but recently I took my international students for an outing as we visited so many places.
Where is it you bring them?
We went to just around KL. We went to the National Mosque, the Islamic Arts Museum, a Tian Ho Temple. When we visited these places, to them it is something very, it's an eye-opening experience for them. Perhaps based on the countries that they come from, coexistence may not be the case in their respective countries. So when they come over and they see this, they feel a sense of harmony.
I see.
Maybe we can claim that it is still on the surface that we coexisted because we coexisted during colonial time, and there's no way you can demolish. But sad to say, in the Hindu temple cases like Mahamariamman, so these are the sensitive issues that the government should take note in order not to repeat the same mistake again.
I see.
Yeah.
Under the constitution, do you think that the Muslim and non-Muslim are well protected in terms of, their freedom to practice whatever religion that they want to practice?
Yes, it is on paper written so. But in practice, we are always questioning what is in practice. Yeah, so more rationality, more discussion, more dialogue would resolve cases like confusion and misunderstanding between religions. And that has to be initiated maybe let's not hope that the government will do everything. We, the locals, and the intellectuals should take the lead, by initiating maybe a small-scale discussion, to enlighten the people. Who knows, one day, if only these ideas are taken seriously, by the policymakers, I think our future would be better. Everything is like in comparison. Why my international students feel there is so much of freedom? It is because they come from a country where freedom is precious, So I think everything is like in comparison, and we are in the middle. Yeah, we have worse cases, we have better cases. So we don't compare ourselves with the worst cases in order to improve, right? I mean, we should look at how maybe Sri Lanka implements religious freedom in their country.
But in general sense, people do feel, especially Muslim, I would say, limited or constrained in terms of the way they can express themselves. And I think Hussain can answer this better, because you are fighting for the rights of the minority faith within Islam. To profess Islam.
Yes.
That's the irony, isn't it?
Well, as for the Muslims, supposedly, they enjoy their freedom of religion, except that under the Sharia or fatwa of the National Council, apparently only Sunni Islam is allowed, and other sects are labeled as deviants. As for the non-Muslims, well, actually, all Malaysians are guaranteed the freedom of speech, expression, and religion. These are all clearly written in the Federal Constitution. Again, Article 11 and 3. Then, and when it comes to royal decrees and fatwas, they are not binding on non-Muslims whose religious rights are guaranteed under the Malaysian Agreement as well. Not only, the Constitution. I'm talking about the Malaysian Agreement 1963, because when it comes to the case of the Sabah and Sarawak Christians, for example, so fatwa rulings and edicts are only applicable to Muslims, and Islam is not an overriding, factor which can deny Malaysians their fundamental rights and liberties. But that's the problem when it comes to this fatwa. There's a lot of gray areas over there.
And is fatwa actually part of the legal system? As in, like, can you be punished by not following a certain fatwa?
Well, Sharia law is a law. Well, Sharia law, but it's a state law, though. It's made by the state assembly. All you need is a simple majority. It can be amended.
If it varies from states to state, then do Muslims behave differently when they move around?
Yeah, because the problem is, it varies from state to state, and then most of the time it's not in line with the Constitution itself.
Yeah, that's true.
So, this Sharia law or the fatwa, it cannot override the Constitution, but that is what is happening.
Yeah, and talking about the Constitution, I mean, Kelantan is trying to reintroduce the Hudud law again, or the Hudud bill, sorry. Yeah. And they have been discussing about this since 20 years ago, I believe.
Yes.
In your own opinion, do you think the Hudud law will discriminate against the non-Muslim?
Well, the Islamic state document published by PAS said there shall be no impact on the non-Muslims. Yeah, and I think that should be the case, unless in the criminal case that there are two parties, the Muslims as well as the non-Muslims. Like, I would think that because they have been living with this Islamization, the process is so real, and that the fact that the bill was passed and then was retracted, because it's unconstitutional, that gives another protection, for the minorities who witness this happen over and over again during and prior to elections for so many times.
I see.
So to them, it is nothing to worry about. I think on the other hand, maybe their concern is like cultural practices that may be deemed as against Islam, and therefore interfering in their daily lives.
I see.
Perhaps that from that aspect, rather than the punishment imposed by hudud in the future onto them.
What are the example of social cultural practices among non-Muslim that maybe is a bit uncomfortable, viewed by the Muslim or the Kelantanese, the
in
Malay?
that case, I just highlight a few, such as behaviors deemed haram by the state government. For example, gaming. Yeah. If gaming is to be banned to all Muslims,
You mean
then,
gambling or?
gambling. Yeah.
Like mahjong.
Toto sports.
Yeah, all forms of gambling.
All forms of, all forms. Yeah. Then are we seeing that happening? I mean, are Muslims being prohibited in all states? But in Kelantan, supposedly, this is not to be encouraged, and therefore maybe Chinese would feel there is a pressure to oblige to this. Yeah? And issues such as alcohol, and how often do Chinese drink? I do not know. These are things
Depends on every person, I guess.
Yeah, it depends. And also some people say, even though I don't drink, but I want to make sure I have the right to drink. That kind of human right issues, minority rights.
Yeah, I think that the
and
overall
identity struggle.
the overall I think sentiment is maybe we might not dwell into certain activities that consider haram among Muslim, but we want to know that at least we have the right to do so. At least we want to know that other
Yes,
people have the right to
exactly.
do so. Right?
Yes, they are defending their rights, not defending the behavior. Yeah, and having said that, some welcome this kind of ban, thinking that it would be good for the future generation.
I see.
That kind of
Interesting, huh?
morality stance.
So what about your view on Islamization in Malaysia, or maybe in a particular area that you live in?
Well, the thing is, I don't agree with it because when you institutionalize religion, right? There will be lesser, how do we say, lesser tolerant basically, towards other religions, because we live in a multicultural society, and we have so many people, expressing different forms of religion here in this country. So when you institutionalize religion, it's like forcing it upon them. So I would say being a secular state will be better in that sort. As long as you respect freedom of religion for all, as long as you allow people to freely practice their religion, I think it will be a much better country, and people will unite even more. But when you put religion into the schools, for example, for the non-Muslims to learn, at least part of of the
Especially in education, isn't it?
Yeah, in education. I mean, it's fine to know each other. Right, just like the Muslims learn about Buddhists or Sikh. It's fine to know each other,
Yes.
but if it goes way beyond that, it's I would say that's kind of troublesome for the future of the nation.
But Islamization has been accepted quite well among the non-Muslim in Kelantan. I wonder why is that so?
I believe that is because they have a strong feeling of solidarity or sense of belonging to the state. I think because they are first Kelantanese, then only other identities set in, whether they are Chinese or whether they are Buddhist or Christian. So that shared identity, being Kelantanese and speaking their own dialect, bring them together. It's like a unifying factor This is my observation, but I'm not sure whether in other states the same strong sense of belonging towards the state would bring forth this kind of
I think Kelantan is a very unique state in a sense.
Yes.
The spirit of the stateness is very high.
Yes. So I feel that Islamization that has been imposed, who has the right to determine or interpret which sect, which denomination,
Right.
which way, and which fatwa. Yeah, so I feel that it would be good. I agree with Hussain, if only we are allowed to think freely, but have education and have knowledge in whatever we practice. That would be better than practice something determined by another person who say this is best for you. Yeah, I mean, as a non-Muslim, I think I enjoy more religious freedom than other Muslims because theirs has been determined. Well, mine, I have my family. I have a Catholic sister-in-law, and my brother, and then I have Christian sister-in-law and brother, and I myself Buddhist. My mom, my dad, Taoist Buddhist. Yeah, so I don't see any problem within my family members, merely because though we have different religion, but we love each other. So that love can take us very far.
I see. But that's the thing, like for non-Muslim, it might not implicate them directly, or it might implicate, in one or two cases. But for Muslim, this is a reality that, you will have to live with this kind of situation, this kind of political system or legal system. In that sense, for non-Muslim, is it should they, have a sense of responsibility, maybe see this as a human rights issue rather than seeing this as merely, it's a Muslim, it's their law, they can do whatever they want?
I think we used to think that way until some political leaders say no to all this Islamization issues such as hudud. The most vocal being Lim Kit Siang, I think, saying that, we have to fight for our rights. Yeah, he was the first to go against hudud and Islamic State declaration.
So he's seeing this as the fight for Malaysians rather than than the fight for non-Muslims.
Yeah, and some he attracted many who think alike. But I think the problem with Malaysia is the moderate people don't speak up. They stay silent and quiet.
Right.
Yeah, allowing others
the silent majority, they call it.
The silent majority, allowing the noisy minority to make the decision and to do the fighting game. And we just watch them, and sometimes it is sad to say what they do is really out of our common sense, our understanding, and yet we still keep quiet.
But for Assajjad here, I would consider him as the vocal majority.
Well, coming back to human rights.
Is he majority or minority? I think he is.
He fights for the rights of the minority.
Majority.
Okay, see, when it comes to talking about silent majority and human rights in Malaysia, first of all, I think there's a lack of basic understanding of human rights in this country, not only of religious but many other rights. And this is especially true among the politicians, not only the people. We have a human rights department under the Prime Minister's department, but it is very new. Why freedom of religion is important is the understanding of it is very core to the building of the unity among people. The fact is the minorities are being persecuted, and there is a silent majority who either they do not care or do not understand freedom of religion, be it in the International Bill of Human Rights context or even within religious context itself. So I think that whoever you are, Muslim or non-Muslims, I think people should know a bit more about basic human rights.
Basic human rights. What is actually basic human rights? Just to give a 101 lesson here.
Well, we
right
do
to
have the
freedom.
International Bill of Human Rights, which is pretty much agreed, by all the countries. Except that the problem here is when it comes to a nation being institutionalized with a certain religion, for example, Islam. There is always a way to get away from this, from adhering to this International Bill of Human Rights, and then all kind of persecution which occurs to the minorities is usually blamed on Islam or any religion, any prevailing religion, indirectly by saying that in Islam there is no such thing as this, human rights. This is a Western agenda and so on. When in fact, even in Islam or in any other religion, it's pretty much is in line with those International Bill of Human Rights which are made, and those people who came up with the Bill of Human Rights themselves have taken this into consideration as well. I agree that in certain contexts, it may have conflicts, but in the case of Malaysia, for example, I don't think we have any problem with the International Bill of Human Rights.
I see.
Right.
Yeah. About Islamization, let's talk about Islamization in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Is it bottom up or is it is it top down?
For me,
The
it is
influence.
both. It is both. It
Both.
works both way. And when people are not thinking, they just respond to policies.
I see.
Right.
So to create a thinking community,
Mm-hmm.
that's most urgent for me.
Thinking community.
Yeah,
Our
think
community
and
are-
be responsible for what you think and how you behave, rather than determined by others. Yeah,
So our community are mostly followers,
we are perhaps
blind faith,
obedient. Yeah.
obedient, too obedient, is it?
I'm not sure because if we have reason for following, then it is not wrong too. Yeah, we
Yeah.
need followers in all organizations and institutions. Yeah.
I think that in our case here, we have a very unique case where the persecution is done by the state itself. It's carried on by the state itself, by politicians, not only in the matter of the Shias or the Ahmadis, even in the matter of the Christians. And the problem is that this state-carried persecution will, slowly turn into communal persecution, like those Middle Eastern countries, for example. It will lead to communal violence. We have seen these kind of happenings in other countries, namely Pakistan. It all happens because people gradually start to buy the state-orchestrated demonizations, because they also think that it is okay for them to persecute, the so-called deviants, and they start engaging in communal violence. So I would say ours right now is in the how to say it? We are at a stage where it's being done by the state. People in the bottom level are involved, but we are not. We are not. Although we are heading to, I'm afraid, but we are not really in the stage where violence are being done by the communities.
Yes.
Although there have been some cases where
I share Hussein's concern here. When it is top down, sometimes the state can easily mobilize people who do not have the blind faith group.
Right.
Yeah, maybe we should not label people. Let's say they do not have enough knowledge to support what they practice, and easily they can be mobilized into something which the state wants, but not they themselves want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
so I worry about this, taking laws as you wish, ignoring the rule of law, but just based on your own likes and dislikes, your favor or and people are already doing this to the society, and the state surprisingly kept silent.
Right.
And that, for us, the bystanders, we watched that happen. We did not say a thing. One day when it happened to us,
I see.
are we
Interesting.
at fault too?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they choose to stay silent. Some for reasons, some they just couldn't care less. But for some, especially the minorities, the mushrooming of Islamist NGO that really help the government to propagate the government's agenda of trying to Islamize this country is at a very worrying state. So in that sense, why why there's just suddenly so many Islamist group around? What are they doing?
Could there be suppression that triggers this mushrooming?
Well, non-state actors is also part of, when it comes to incitement of hatred. Even religious clerics, people are doing it everywhere. And I think there's a infiltration. Like I said earlier, it's being, the beginning is done by the state itself, and then slowly people start to buy the ideas,
yes.
or that these people are deviants. These people, the Christians, for example, they have an agenda to convert the Muslims into Christianity, make this a Christian country, and so on. People, people are becoming more involved in politics, and then the nature of our people is that it's either you belong to, it's either you support the government or you belong to the opposition party. So people are just parroting what politicians say. And this is even worse when you have clerics who are not necessarily in the religious department, although the demonization of the Shias, for example, and the Ahmadiyas are being done by the religious authorities, clerics going around giving speech in the mosque and so on.
Yeah, but, especially in the places of worship,
right.
In local mosques and even larger national mosques, the message is the same. It's about vilification of minority sects and even minority faith of non-Muslim religion. So it is being actively done by all these non-state actors, but when it comes to the ordinary people, they, like you say, they just stand there and do nothing, and they either they don't care or they completely blindly follow whatever was being spewed. So my area is like, why we are allowing this? Like, what can we do about it?
I just wonder whether we do reading on others and on ourselves. Our own faith and religion. Otherwise we'll just have to depend on an interpreter to interpret for us what Quran says, what Bible says, and what all the text says. And that could be a danger, I think.
And the majority voice are propagating the idea that maybe Islamic State is the natural state of what a Muslim should aspire towards, rather than having the so-called quote-unquote Western version of secular state. But I know you are propagating the idea of secular state, right? And I'm not sure about you. What is your opinion on this?
I agree with the secular state where religion is a personal choice. I mean, religion is between, perhaps we talk about spirituality rather than religion. It is between God and us, right? So who can intervene between God and me? Who should be in between? Who should mediate? Who should teach and discipline me to respect God, if not me myself? So,
well, people may argue that a theocratic state, can promote unity or can protect the rights of the religious minorities, but clearly that's not what's happening in Malaysia. We are supposedly a secular state. The founding documents suggest that this is supposed to be a secular state, and we are moving towards a theocracy or institutionalizing Islam, at least. We are not even a country which is based on a theocracy yet, and we already have these problems. So imagine, I don't think it's going to be a very nice ending.
Can you share with us more about the plights and the situation of the Ahmadis and also the Shia in Malaysia? Like, how many of them are in Malaysia, and what kind of situation they are facing right now?
Okay. Well, according to the Home Ministry, the number that they came up with was 250,000, but that's like the official number, which I don't know, because the Shias practice dissimulation because of the persecution. They cannot say openly that they are Shias, so obviously they are more than that. the Shia version of Islam is banned in Malaysia under the state fatwa prescribing being involved
All
in
states?
almost all states. 13, so the fatwa says that being involved in learning or propagating Shiite teachings is not allowed. Under the state of Selangor, for example, Section 12C of the Selangor Sharia Crimes Enactment 1995, Shias can be charged for allegedly committing contempt against the religious authorities. So those found guilty of this offense and charged, they can be fined up to 3,000 ringgit, jailed up to 2 years or both. So, well, there have been ongoing cases of persecution against the Shias dating back to the 80s, where there were adherents even detained under the ISA. The Shias have been facing arrest, seizure of properties, ongoing raids carried on in their privately owned premise, and demonization in the mass media. In fact, recently, last month, 114 Shia adherents were arrested.
Wow, that's a lot of number.
Yeah, and among those arrested were women and children.
Oh, wow. And they were being jailed as well, isn't it?
They were remanded for a night. They were remanded for a night, and then after that, the usual cases, they are called to face the religious authorities, where they will be given, advice. Well, that's the Shias.
Here we see state hegemony, that determines your life, your well-being, and not giving you any good reasons, not using the rationale.
That's true.
To support what they do.
You did a lot of research when it comes to the ethnic minority in Kelantan. What was the outcome and the findings that you found?
Well, I think due to their close proximity, their interaction, and I would say they have achieved some form of solidarity among the Kelantanese. So when it comes to state government imposing certain laws onto the Muslims, I think the non-Muslims are actually behaving like a bystanders, but not at fault though, because it has little to do with them.
I see.
Yeah, so they watch how the state government showcase what's the best way, how best to wear a tudung, So and how a lot of advice, in terms of gender difference, in terms of morality, how you should behave. So to them, it is part and parcel of their life. Yeah.
So they are fine with moral policing, is it? Or is it they are not?
Policing,
they are being accepted as they are not being part of this
flow.
Oh, okay.
From the based on respect. As I respect you as a Muslim, then as I visit you, then I will wear proper dress in order not to offend you. That kind of understanding. So I would like to bring back my earlier point. Even though we are different, but how can we love? How can we respect each other and celebrate each other's differences? We have to do this through something deeper than that, which is some underlying emotions involved, so that you don't take offense if I make mistake, and vice versa. When you make mistakes, I forgive, knowing that you are not having the same religion as me.
I see.
But now the state is having a higher position, telling you what you should or should not do. Like the Allah issue. So that make people feel that there is little room, for discussion. You take action, and then later you justify your action, rather than you discuss and you make good decisions. There's a lot of regret and sorry, but damage is done.
Correct.
And I feel it is not very conducive or productive in bringing people together.
I see.
It is driving people away. Like what Fatwa says, then people will immediately say otherwise. And that shows little respect to the authority.
Yeah.
What are you saying? You don't back up with your rationale, or don't even. There is no basis for what you want to impose on us, and even though we are silent, but we will rebel.
Yeah.
We will do something to show, but not in an open manner. So I think that's why many subversive bodies are secretly formed, and then with the internet, you can actually group and don't name yourself
I see.
after a sect or what. Then
So
you
the
can
internet
be
is the
free
only way for us to voice
express,
out,
yes.
to express, ourselves.
People are clearly frustrated. I mean, if
The sentiments in the social media is clearly being
Mhm.
laid down. They are really unhappy with the situation. Although in some sense you are right. Like, we are still quite peaceful. In terms of the way we coexist with each other, but doesn't mean that we are happy with the way we are being controlled.
In social science, there's a term called stable tension.
Okay,
It
explain more
looks-
about it.
It looks stable, but there is tension. So waiting for a spark,
Yeah.
And I'm worried about this
I see.
scenario.
Explain more. Why you are worried about this?
Because I see too many sparks, and which one will trigger a fire? Sometimes they can manage to overcome, and by justifying or by retracting what they say. But at times we know, the more it is testing our tolerance now. I think. Yeah, to say tolerance is also a not so good word. That means I don't like you, but I tolerate you. Yeah, it's different from respecting you out of love, and recognizing you as different from me.
You want to add something?
Yeah,
Sin?
I mean, the direction that we are heading towards is surely ugly. I mean, people sometimes question me, it's not like, you have some minority getting killed over there because of practicing that religion. But are we going to wait for that moment to come? Only then we act. It's going to get really ugly, and it's going to get uncontrollable. Malaysia had once witnessed the 13 May tragedy, for example. We don't want to go back there. We have cases of patrol bombs being hurled into churches. I think
It happens a few years ago.
a few years ago. Regardless of who is the proprietor behind that.
But have they been reprimanded? Have they been punished? What is the follow-up case for this?
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Like,
We only care for the incident, but not the implications of the incident.
Right. And what is the lesson learned from this?
And the lesson will repeat itself, again.
yeah. But what is your view on the NUCC, National Unity Consultative Council? Do you have any? Have you heard of that?
Yes,
Before?
yes. I am part of that.
Oh, really? You
The
might have any comment on that? I mean, they are working towards trying to fix whatever that is being broken.
I think this is a genuine effort too, by the government, knowing that there are fractions, on the ground. So getting NUCC, National Unity Consultative Council, to go to different places to listen to the people. They call it the session. It's called the Voices of the People. Yeah, it started off in Dewan Bahasa Pustaka Kuala Lumpur, and then it went on to different states and listening to different communities. And there will be a report on the major concerns of these people. And to me, this is a very good effort. But how effective, we will have to see.
I see.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Hussain, what do you think? Do you think it will, our country will go towards, a positive path or something much more darker?
I think if we don't do something about it right now, that's where we are heading to. I'm just afraid of this, these communities rising up, and these clerics. It's becoming very, the situation is becoming like those countries with, tribal leaders instigating hatred and so on. What we need to do here is, people like you and me, whether you're in an NGO or just part of the common everyday society, we need to get engaged in. It depends on our capability. If you are active, you can get engaged in interfaith dialogues, for example. Like even my organization, we do as much as possible to meet the Christians, for example, other Muslims, the Hindus, and we try to find a solution. It's not just hey, let's get to know each other. We should have got to know each other long back then. It's not now. But there is a problem going on here, and we need to take actions right now. And basic values.
It is natural for Hussain to bring up the issue of Shiite and Ahmadiyya. But for me to know the problem they face, I need courage and I need knowledge. So until I am willing to do that, then the pressure on Ahmadiyya and Shiite will be
lesson.
So how to go about doing this for a person, a bystander, to get engaged and get involved? So it comes through
individual efforts in that sense, right?
Yes, and every individual is responsible for their decision, whether to stay on as bystanders or to watch what people suffer and how people react and make own decision, whether to support or to ignore. But not knowing is now the choice. And this is a dangerous choice because you allow others to determine for you, to interpret for you what kind of life, what kind of neighborhood, what kind of country, what kind
and
of
who
state.
you can marry and fall in love with as well.
And many more issues, that can come so close to you.
Yeah.
And by then, maybe you don't have a choice but to follow.
And one of the institutions are actively doing this, of course, is the JAKIM, or the Islamic Department of Malaysia. But what is your view on this particular institution?
Well,
they always want to do something very so-called righteous and something that we find them very arrogant in doing that. But what power do they have? How much can they do? How much power was given to them? That we need. Perhaps a more an expert in law, perhaps, or Sharia law, in order to resolve this.
I see. Hussain, do you have any view on this?
Well, if they are doing it, sincerely, and we do see sincere efforts coming out from JAKIM, for example, then, we welcome it, of course. But how much are they doing it? Do people realize that in the first place? JAKIM, what I know, they stand for is, the development of Muslims. Unfortunately, I don't see programs such as, they have programs such as the evils of Shias, being done in institutions like universities, on national television. I don't think this in any way, develop the Muslims in any form of way. If they really want to, show sincere effort, then they should go around, talking about coexistence, talking about freedom of religion. In fact, we hardly hear anyone from JAKIM talking about freedom of religion.
We hardly. And in fact, in many times, especially in JAKIM's website, they usually have code on conduct on whether you should celebrate Valentine's Day or whether you should greet, the non-Muslim, whatever religion that they are celebrating, festivals. So this is something I don't know whether it's relevant or not in today's multicultural context.
To me, we have so many other issues to worry about, and here they are, listing out the do's and don'ts, and the don'ts sometimes do not matter to
That's
us.
true.
And we see, but many non-Muslims, as I noticed, they judge Islam by the behavior of Muslims.
Yeah,
So that could be another root cause of misunderstanding each other. You know, they don't read the Quran for most of us, and therefore we look at how you all react and how you all act. Yeah, and that the making headlines, you know, of for very minor issues in our view, is not going to create more understanding between different religions.
But if you can reimagine, like, whether we should or should not have an Islamic department, how it would be, you know, do you think we should have, or do you think we should not have?
We can have.
But how it would function?
Well,
I would think that a dialogue, you know, within Islamic sects and groups.
Just like maybe you can give example of other countries, how, you know, their Islamic department function in order to preserve, you know, whether to preserve the divide between the separation between state and religion, or to ensure more education and more enlightenment towards not just Muslim but non-Muslim alike. So what kind of role that they should play, so in a sense they would go in line with the real values of Islam, rather than what, you know, rather than the status quo that we are having right now?
I think we have to look at the weakness of the Islamic government. You see, the religious bodies, you know, they have been playing the blame game. You know, you blame the Jews who don't even live in Malaysia. You blame the Christians. Apostasy matter, for example. You know, when the Allah issue came up, you know, one of the things that said that, you know, the Allah issue is being used by the Christians to proselytize, or, you know, to make Muslims convert into Christianity. You know, this blame game going on. I think that what they should focus on is actually proper education about Islam among the Muslims, and redistribution of zakat, for example. You know, the religious bodies are in charge of the zakat, so, you know, this is where you do your work. So the apostasy case, for example, you know, it occurs a lot among the mu'alaf, the converts, you know, not among the Malay Muslims, you know, traditionally Muslims. So there is something wrong over there. You know, why not focus on these kind of things? You know, if you want to talk about, you know, developing Muslim community, for example, you know, because that's what it stands for, Jabatan Kemajuan Islam, then I haven't heard many of them talking about eradicating poverty.
Oh yeah, on social justice, very little conversation on social justice.
I would think that they should focus more on the do's rather than the don'ts.
Yeah, right.
Just
In the Kelantan state government, because it's a Islamist government, I would say, do they focus a lot on social justice among the Muslim and non-Muslim alike?
They claim they eradicate or minimize corruption, so that would
Based on your observation?
They improve, They improve the system, by making tender open, etc. So allowing some Chinese to get the opportunity, to be in the government project, etc. So if they have had this kind of opportunity, I'm sure they will be able to see social justice.
But have they done enough in terms of to improve the people, the whole people of Kelantan, the livelihood?
Well, in Kelantan, about 54% still under rural area. So that is the area where they should focus on, I think. Yeah, besides spiritual talks and all that, how to improve farmers' standard of living, how to provide job opportunity, and that would be better off than just focus on the don'ts.
Hussain, go on.
There are many ways of developing the Muslim Ummah without touching on the issues such as creed. As creed is very personal, and even jurisdiction, the fiqh, it differs from one mazhab to another. It's very subjective, and they should also understand even Islam promotes freedom of religion, It's not the so-called Western agenda. And apart from all these, spiritual talks, these talks about, protecting your creed, they should focus on real issues. I'm not saying that, creed is not important, but it's very personal. It's between man and God. But as a body, as an institutionalized body, they should work way beyond that. We must see, results coming out of that, that organization.
To be result-oriented.
Yeah.
I think that is what is lacking.
The check and balance, I would say.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's very...
That's
Who audits them?
Yeah, who audits them? That's the right word to ask.
And who can work without being audited? That is conscience, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is responsibility to God. And that is to fear God, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, I thought that would be easier to manage
Yeah.
if we self-manage. Yeah, rather than to catch or to detain or to punish and to suppress people.
So, your last message. Why freedom of religion is important in a country, especially, us in Malaysia? Any of you guys?
Why it is important? Because this is a democratic country, and therefore freedom to choose and freedom to portray ourselves, our identity, is something that we assume we should have, not something that we should fight for. It is natural. It is a naluri. It is
Conscience.
It is not nafsu. Yeah, it is not like you are greedy. You want more. What else do you want?
So
It's
nafsu
not
is
that.
desire.
Yeah, it's not a desire. It's a natural thing. It's just like we are human. We need to eat. We need to have a shelter, and therefore we also need freedom. And to have religious freedom, it means we have freedom of thinking, that we can make our own choice.
Right.
Yeah, I think in many cases, even though I make the wrong choice, but because it is my choice, so I will be responsible for it, and I will not repeat the mistake again. But if you assign something for me, or assign someone for me to marry, and if I fail, I can always blame it on others, not me. Yeah, so I think that taking up own responsibility in matters related to religion is something that we should take note. Yeah, well, don't hope others or the institution or the state would tell you what to do. You should read up. You should communicate with other religions to see what they are doing in order to benchmark how well you are doing in your own religion. Yeah, or even better, if you have the chance to travel outside Malaysia. Well, I have international students coming, telling me Malaysia, okay, and they benchmark our Islam and their Islam, and they have quite a number of things to rectify. You know, yeah. So with that, I think this is my wish that everybody, every individual, to be more conscious about our own choice and our own responsibility towards the nation.
And you, Hussain?
Well, like I said earlier, just now, there's an ignorance. There's a lack of understanding about rights, about freedom of religion. Not only in the context of human rights standards, but even in the context within religion itself. I don't think people really understand the meaning of coexistence. When coexistence is actually a foundation of of an ideal society. So to understand each other, you also need to know the rights of each other. Otherwise, you wouldn't know when are you when are you getting into the others, right? So and because of ignorance. Ignorance often leads to misunderstanding. It leads to violence. So we can never ever see an ideal society which supports coexistence if we do not have these basic ideas of that I should not, worry about what religion is my my neighbors are practicing. That I should also understand that it is also my duty, my right to speak up for the rights of my neighbor if he is persecuted simply because he
Yes.
worships a different god or follows a different prophet or so it's about working with each other.
Yes.
We built this nation on that basis.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you everyone, and thank you for coming to Durian ASEAN.
Thank you,
Uh,
Arlene, for inviting us.